I think it definitely is an achievable target. It won't be easy, not just because of coal that you mentioned, but also because agriculture and methane emissions from agriculture are not going to be easy to reduce emissions. Industrial decarbonization will be another big issue. We call these the hard to abate sectors, things like steel, cement, fertilizers, chemicals. And this will require new technologies like the use of green hydrogen, much more electrification than we currently have. And it will also require lifting up a lot of India's informal micro, small and medium enterprises. So it's going to be a really whole of economy approach and will definitely be a difficult, challenging target, but one to aspire for.
Yeah. Has there been any discussion in India around these targets, around changing the direction that India has been going in recent weeks, months, years?
There's been a lot of discussion. I think 6 to 8 months ago, there was very little public awareness of what net zero means as a concept, what it means as a development pathway for India. But over the last few months, it has become the stuff of primetime news television and the front pages of business newspapers. So I think there's been a lot of informed discussion about what 2070 means versus 2060 or 2050, what net zero greenhouse gases target means versus net zero carbon dioxide target, and what really will have to happen in different sectors with different technologies, policies, and even reskilling of people as they move out of certain occupations as we sunset out of them. So I think there's been a lot of discussion, and I think everyone from government to industry to civil society is aware that this is going to be tough. But surprisingly, industry has been quite welcoming, quite open to this, and many of them are installing, taking on their own targets. So this kind of national top-down target will give the right types of signals to almost every sector of industry and society.
Yeah, that is interesting. How dependent might it be, though, on financial and technological support from the international community?
Definitely. We are talking about billions of dollars of investments, particularly in the next 10 years, for things like battery storage, hydrogen electrolyzers, solar power, of course. And we are hoping that a lot of this will come in the form of commercial investments. The last few months, particularly after President Biden took over the US, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been visiting. There have been partnerships even with Denmark and Sweden, for clean technologies. So we are hoping that a lot of this will come in the form of commercial technology investments. On the public finance front, as many viewers would be aware, there's been definitely a shortfall in the kinds of climate finance flows that have been coming through the UNFCCC framework. So it would be great if we can make up for some of that, though that should go really more for sectors like agriculture, water, health, and disaster management.
What could the impact be, and what needs to be done for some of the nation's poorest and disadvantaged?
Yes, I think for them, climate change is something that is already a lived reality. That's why we speak in the negotiations about loss and damage, that is loss of lives and damage to property that is already happening. Sectors like adapting to the impacts of climate change in health, water, agriculture, these don't lend themselves well to commercial investments. So these countries and these kinds of interventions should really get priority in terms of grants. Otherwise, if you give loans to these countries, then they become even more indebted while they fight the impacts of climate change. So definitely that should be a priority for all of us, and it's a time for solidarity.
When Modi's on the world stage, he's very charismatic. He's very, he sort of goes along potentially with the mood. How is he going to deliver back home, and how will he take people with him?
So it's very interesting because a lot of the targets that we heard about yesterday are in some sense part of our domestic electricity planning policy. They're a little more ambitious than what the country had planned, but the anticipation was really to hear these submitted in the context of the COP26 framework as a commitment to the world community, not just something that the country was planning for itself. Many of the things like green hydrogen that I spoke about will be difficult for India to do on its own. It requires this technology to get scaled up and for the prices to become more affordable for Indian companies to adopt. So some of the very interesting kinds of interventions that the government is doing is acting as an aggregator of demand from different industries. So that would help create, the market for these new technologies as well. Otherwise, there are many things that are very much doable. Like already there is rapid progress in the electric vehicle sector. There's things like, moving from road freight trucks to more of railways. There's things like restoring the land so that communities who depend on the land get supported in their livelihoods. So it's not all fancy new technologies. A lot of things that can be done with simple policies and committed investments, provided we get into them at an early stage.
And does the country see it as an opportunity to a degree to go into smarter technologies that then can be unsold elsewhere?
I think it sees them as all three, a risk, a threat, and an opportunity. So I think this year in particular, with the IPCC Code Red report coming out, there's been great awareness that India has much to lose from climate change. Industry is also aware that if it wants to compete in foreign markets, in Europe in particular, it needs to be competitive as far as carbon footprint is concerned. And definitely it's an opportunity because it will create new jobs in green sectors and also lead to better health because of reduced air pollution. So I think for all three of these reasons, it is something that is worth exploring for our future.
Ulka, really great to get your analysis on this. Very interesting times. Good to talk.
Thank you so much.